Good morning, noon or night everyone. Welcome back to The Fog, and let's see what's on the menu for today, the Outlast Trials chapter concept for Dead by Daylight. In today's video we'll be going over what Outlast Trials is, how I'd incorporate it into Dead by Daylight, and finishing up with a concept killer and survivor. And before we get onto that, I just want to say thank you to all of you. I did not expect my Amazing Digital Circus video to blow up the way it did. I mean, in less than a few days it became the most viewed video on the channel, and it really proved to me that people are interested in my concepts, so thank you all, truly. Now let's get on to the video. The Outlast Trials is the third game in the Outlast series developed by Red Barrel Studios. Taking place from around 1959 to 1961, the game follows you, an unnamed person joining a Murkoff testing opportunity which eventually gets you a spot as a reagent in Project Lathe 2 under Dr. Easterman at the Signala facility. Now, the Outlast Trials is a game with a lot of lore that is super interesting, and I personally recommend it to anyone interested in lore, but for the sake of this video, I'll be going over a few key lore points to keep things going smoothly. Firstly, Lathe 2. Lathe 2, also known as Project Lathe, is the Murkoff project directed by Dr. Easterman in collaboration with the CIA's MKUltra, the same project worked on by Herman Carter in the Dead by Daylight universe. It focuses around creating sleeper agents through brainwashing to be used by the CIA as infiltrators and operatives in pro-communist states during the Cold War. Dr. Easterman, however, has plans for these sleeper agents to get into positions of power as thought leaders, to shape society into Easterman's own image to satiate his godplex. As for Easterman himself, Hendrik Jolie Easterman grew up with his brother and abusive mother in the United States. Once they grew older and left home, Hendrik's brother, Stanley, joined the army to fight in the Korean War, eventually committing suicide. Unaware that his suicide was caused by long-term mental health problems, Hendrik believed his brother's suicide to be a product of Korean brainwashing, publishing writings on the subject garnering the attention of the CIA. He was assigned to study the Turncoats, a coalition of Korean POWs who renounced the United States and defected to China, as an operative under the Murkoff Corporation, a partner of the CIA. Murkoff higher-ups eventually saw potential in Easterman's brainwashing as a complementary project to Dr. Wernicke's Project Walrider, establishing him as head researcher of the Signala facility in the New Mexican desert. Easterman created the first Project Lathe, but it failed to create usable agents, with him refining it into Lathe 2, which are the trials we know today. Next are the Prime Assets. Now, the Prime Assets are one of the most memorable pieces of the Outlast Trials. Easterman refers to them as fountainheads of belief and charisma, with Easterman using them to lead and influence the X-Pop, or experimental population, which is the grunts and minor enemies we see in the trials. Most of the Primes are charismatic murderers who were recruited by Clyde Perry and Murkoff. The primes we have so far are as follows. Phyllis Futterman, a disgraced and mentally unstable TV show host struggling with psychosis and dissociation, manifesting through her hand puppet, Dr. Futterman, a crude avatar of her father. Dylan Coyle, a corrupt and delusional former Marine turned policeman, obsessed with upholding his ideas of the law, electricity, and racism. Franco Barbie, a perverse gunslinging manchild who also happens to be the deserted son of a mafia don. Otto and Aurora Kress, a pair of incestuous aristocratic conjoined twins, born as a result of toxin exposure. Otto skilled in politics and Aurora in chemistry, both of them former Murkoff scientists before being converted to Prime Assets. And finally, so far at least, we have Lilia Bogomolova, a Russian orphan raised in the clergy turned into an ambush predator during the siege of Leningrad, now standing as an evangelicalist with a messiah complex derived from her hypnotic charisma believed to be a gift from God. Now, for the reagents. Most of the time they follow and obey Easterman. That was until Amelia came into the question. Amelia Collier was a con artist and thief from Illinois, who joined the Charitable Outreach Center to find her boyfriend, Damon Green. Little did she know, Murkoff's Charitable Outreach Center was a quick way to become a reagent. While there, however, she managed to escape the confines of her trial and navigated the facility using blind spots and cameras. Finding her boyfriend dead, she would go on to vow to destroy Easterman and Signala from the inside. She left graffiti around the trial environments and hijacked radios in the reagent cells, culminating in an escape event where dozens of reagents escaped into the New Mexico desert. Meanwhile, Amelia herself was captured by Murkoff's security. Right now, she sits in the Catatonia ward, closely watched by Easterman, and recently, with the new Project Judas update, we see Easterman attempting to erase Amelia from the minds of the reagents by burning her followers and supposedly burning her, but the voice lines prove that this isn't actually Amelia, as Easterman seems to have other plans for her. Another important figure in Signala is Alice Bradley Avellanos. Her exact position is unclear, but it's obvious that she holds some level of power in the facility, being in contact with many of the higher-ups, with it being possible she works in some kind of finance department. Now, she sees Easterman as a loose cannon, primarily for bringing in Lilia as a prime asset from Mount Massive, an asylum under Murkoff known for its incredibly dangerous inmates, as well as bringing in Ottawa and Aurora from R&D, and giving reagents knives as part of Project Invasion. It's very possible that with Project Judas, that Avellanos might actually sabotage Eastman alongside his other co-workers, who believe he is too unstable to stay in control. It is also true that Avellanos is having an affair with Jameson Lawler, the CIA negotiator for Murkoff. Now, one last thing before we move on to the concepts is the Skinnerman. The Skinnerman is an egregore, manifested from the collective suffering and misery of Signala, that often takes the form of a corrupted Easterman, something that troubles him deeply. The Skinnerman is one of two egregores in Signala, the other being created by Amelia during her escape, but yet to fully manifest. Now, how do we go about as adapting something as vast as the Outlast Trials into Dead by Daylight? Well, I think there's a lot of routes you could go for it. Obviously, the primes make for good killer opportunities, and there's quite a few survivors you could pick. But I'm going to show you how I did it. The Egregore, an average height killer with 4.6 meters per second and a 32 meter terror radius. The Egregore, also known as the Skinnerman, is a manifestation of the suffering and misery felt by those in Signala. Easterman, also taken by the entity, is able to remotely control and orchestrate the events of his trial through the Egregore and its power, Horrors of Signala. Killer Power, Horrors of Signala. Unique Environment, Insertion Gate. Across the trial, there is a total of 10 insertion gates. These insertion gates appear like elevators and are typically in close proximity to generators. Unique Ability, Preemptive Therapy. The Egregore is able to place various traps around the map that will spray survivors with psychopsychosis gas, up to a maximum of 6 traps. These traps are attached to various interactables that will activate once the survivor touches the object. The traps can also be set down as mines that will spray a cloud of gas if stepped on. Once the survivor gets sprayed with the psychopsychosis gas, the Egregore will be able to activate the prime assets. Preemptive Therapy has a cooldown of 20 seconds between placing traps. Unique Ability, the Prime Assets. Upon activating this ability, the Egregore will be shown the auras of all insertion gates, and each will have a randomized icon above it indicating which prime asset will be inserted upon choosing the door. After a prime asset has been selected, the icon above the selected door will change to the next asset, in the order of Coil, Gooseberry, Franco, Crest Twins, and Lilia. Then, the player will resume control over the selected prime asset they have chosen and be inserted into the trial via the chosen insertion gate. Prime assets are required to return to the insertion gate after they have hooked a survivor, returning the player to the Egregore who will manifest within 20 meters of a survivor. The ability to insert a prime asset will then be on cooldown until the Egregore manages to infect a survivor with psychopsychosis again. Prime asset, Leland Coil. When Leland Coil is inserted into the trial, the player will take control over him and move at 4.6 meters per second. Leland Coil's ability is Excessive Force. This ability causes 15 electrical grates to spawn across the map near pallets and windows, with each grate spanning about 2 meters. Using his ability, Coil is able to activate these grates to shock survivors, causing them to lose a health state and Coil to gain a 15% haste boost for 12 seconds. Excessive Force has a cooldown of 3 seconds. Prime Asset, Mother Gooseberry. When Mother Gooseberry is entered into the trial, the player will take control over her and move at 4.6 meters per second. Mother Gooseberry's ability is Daddy's Teachings. This ability can be activated at any time and causes Dr. Futterman to begin yelling at Phyllis as his persona takes control. While Dr. Futterman is in control, Mother Gooseberry has an increased lunge and is able to activate a grab ability. She will lunge forward about 1.5 meters in an attempt to grab a survivor, and if doing so, she will stab them multiple times, inflicting them with deep wound, mangled, hemorrhage, and broken. After a successful grab, or after 30 seconds, Daddy's Teachings will go on cooldown for 20 seconds. Prime Asset, Franco Barbie. When Franco Barbie is entered into the trial, the player will take control over him and move at 4.5 meters per second. Franco's ability is called Manchild. This ability is activated whenever Franco is stunned. This ability allows Franco to fire 2 teeth bullets from his Lupara. He does have a small aim-in animation that allows him to see where he is pointing his Lupara before firing 2 consecutive shots. If Franco hits a survivor, they will lose a health state and Franco is able to fire Lupara again after a small 3-second reload. Franco is able to fire Lupara as much as he wants as long as he hits a survivor with 1 bullet to trigger a reload. If Franco misses a shot and expends both bullets, he is unable to activate Manchild again until he is stunned. Prime Asset, Otto and Aurora Cress. When Otto and Aurora are entered into the trial, the player will take control over them and move at 4.6 meters per second. Otto and Aurora have a unique visibility. The player will view the game from Otto's front-facing point of view. If a survivor ever appears behind the twins, Aurora will reveal the survivor with Killer Instinct. Otto and Aurora's ability is called Inherited Toxins. This ability allows Aurora to throw out a vial of Crest Toxin, releasing a large cloud of gas around the area once the vial smashes against the ground. If any survivors step inside the gas created by the Crest Toxin, they will have 8 seconds before they will puke, forcing them to stop and throw up before being allowed to move again. Inherited Toxins has a cooldown of 15 seconds between throws. Prime Asset, Lilia Bogomolova. When Lilia Bogomolova is entered into the trial, the player will take control over her and move at 4.7 meters per second. When Lilia is entered into the trial, dozens of mannequins will appear around the map in various positions and poses. Lilia does not have a terror radius, and instead only has a small lullaby. Lilia's ability is Divine Aid. When Lilia activates this ability, she will become locked in place and strike a pose, blending in with the other mannequins. She will also see all survivors through Killer Instinct that gets more prominent with the closer the survivor is. When a survivor is within 5 meters of Lilia, she is able to pounce on them, costing them a health state. Lilia is able to deactivate this ability to move again, being indicated to the survivors through one of her voice lines being played map-wide. Divine Aid has a cooldown of 8 seconds after pouncing or deactivating ability. And that's it for the Egregor's power. Admittedly, it's enormous, and definitely my most wordy killer power, yeah, but I definitely think it has potential to work in practice, and I think at the end of the day, it's a better way to include the primes in-game instead of just making them skins. Now, we've had the Skinnerman as the killer, the primes as the power, which just leaves us with Easterman for the perks. Project Relapse. This perk activates after all generators have been completed. The exit gates will become blocked until each survivor has performed a small interaction with a completed generator, forcing them to go back into the trial and find a generator to interact with, then allowing the exit gates to be unblocked. This interaction takes 5, 6, or 7 seconds. Force Progress. This perk activates after a survivor vaults a window or pallet more than 3 times in 30 seconds. If this occurs for the next 40, 50, or 60 seconds, any windows vaulted by the survivor will become blocked for all survivors, while still allowing the killer to vault these windows at an increased 10% vault speed. Mental Override. This perk activates once a survivor heals another survivor. This perk causes the survivor to become incapacitated for the next 30, 35, or 40 seconds, only able to heal other survivors. This perk has a cooldown of 80 seconds once the incapacitated ends. Now, onto our survivor, Emilia Cola. Signala's Martyr. This perk activates while you are on the hook. While you are on the hook, all survivors gain a 15% boost to generator repair speeds of 30, 35, and 40 seconds. If a generator is completed while you are on the hook, you gain the ability to unhook yourself. Icon of Escape. When all generators are completed, this perk activates. When survivors are within 10 meters of you, they gain a 50% speed increase to opening exit gates and totem cleansing speeds. Stun Rig. To activate this perk, there are 2 requirements needed. Firstly, you need to obtain a generator part, completing an interaction on a generator that reduces the total generator progress by 5% and takes 8 seconds. Secondly, you must be inside the killer's terror radius for 35 seconds without being caught. Once both of these requirements are met, you can enter a locker to craft the Stun Rig. The Stun Rig is an item that is thrown to the floor, stunning the killer if they go within the rig's radius. The rig will then go on cooldown for 100 seconds or until the survivor repairs 15% of generator progress. And that's it. The Outlast Trials concept chapter complete with a killer and survivor just in time for prime time later this spring. I really hope you all enjoyed this concept. Outlast Trials is one of my all-time favourite games, and it would truly be an honour to have it in the fog. Outlast Trials holds a very special place in my heart. It was one of my first proper horror games that I ever played with friends, and even though I don't really play with those friends anymore, the game and its community still hold a special place in my heart. And I think it's good to finally get my love for the game out there, diluted in a way I can show you all through a chapter concept. Till then, thanks for visiting. That's all in the menu for today, and I'll see you in the fog.